Utilitarianism is a philosophical work written by John Stuart Mill and published in 1863. It provides an in-depth exploration and defense of the ethical theory known as utilitarianism. Mill builds upon the utilitarian ideas of Jeremy Bentham and offers his own modifications and clarifications to the theory. In Utilitarianism, Mill defines utilitarianism as the ethical principle that actions are right in proportion as they promote the greatest happiness for the greatest number of people. According to Mill, the ultimate goal of morality is to maximize overall happiness and minimize suffering in society. Mill distinguishes between higher and lower pleasures, asserting that higher pleasures, such as intellectual and moral pursuits, are of greater value than lower pleasures, such as physical pleasures. He argues that the moral agent should strive to promote the higher pleasures not only for oneself but for all members of society. Mill also introduces the principle of the greatest happiness principle, which states that the ethical value of an action is determined by the amount of happiness it produces for all affected individuals. In his view, actions are morally right if they tend to maximize happiness and wrong if they lead to unhappiness. Critics of utilitarianism have raised several concerns. One common critique is that utilitarianism can be overly focused on aggregating overall happiness and neglect the importance of individual rights and justice. Critics argue that the theory may justify sacrificing the rights or well-being of certain individuals for the greater good, which can lead to unjust consequences. Others question the feasibility of measuring happiness and comparing it across individuals. They argue that the quantification of happiness and the calculation of utility can be subjective and prone to bias. Additionally, critics argue that it is challenging to predict long-term consequences and account for all factors that contribute to happiness or well-being. Furthermore, some argue that utilitarianism may neglect the significance of virtues and personal integrity. Critics suggest that focusing solely on outcomes and happiness may ignore the value of moral character and the intrinsic worth of certain actions, regardless of their consequences. Despite the criticisms, utilitarianism remains an influential work in moral philosophy and has had a lasting impact on ethical discussions. It has contributed to the development of consequentialist ethics and the exploration of the balance between individual and societal well-being. In summary, Utilitarianism, by John Stuart Mill, presents and defends the ethical theory that actions should be judged based on their ability to promote the greatest happiness for the greatest number of people. Mill emphasizes the importance of higher pleasures and introduces the greatest happiness principle. However, critics have raised concerns about the theory's potential to neglect individual rights, the challenges of measuring happiness, and the omission of virtues and personal integrity. Nonetheless, the work continues to be significant in moral philosophy and has influenced subsequent ethical discourse.